Welcome to Vulnerability, Introspection and Growth, the podcast where we explore the beautiful, messy and transformative magic that happens when we dare to go within. I'm your host, Robin Harris, and in each episode we'll dive into real, honest stories from people who've faced their fears, embraced their vulnerabilities, and discovered unexpected growth in their personal lives, careers, or businesses. This is a space for deep listening, open hearts, and soul-nourishing conversations. Because when we meet ourselves in our rawest moments, that's often where our greatest wisdom starts. Let's begin. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Vulnerability, Introspection and Growth podcast, the VIG podcast. And today I have with me another amazing guest, and that is Asi Efros. So Asi, welcome. It's so wonderful to have you here with us on the podcast. And I'm just going to start by doing a quick introduction to let people know a little bit more about you. So Asi is a transformational life coach at Create Your Dream Life, Career and Business. What an amazing name. Which is a coaching practice that empowers creatives, entrepreneurs and professionals to build lives they truly love. With over 3 decades of experience in the fashion industry, Asi's career now flourishes across coaching, writing, and podcasting. And outside of work, she's a wife, mother, avid traveler, and dedicated yoga practitioner. Thank you so much for joining us today, Asi. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Robin, for this amazing introduction. And thank you so much for inviting me to this amazing podcast.
And I start with every guest asking 3 quick questions. The first of those is, what makes your story relatable for others?
I think that as we all are different, we still have similar things we're going on through lives. And so, yeah, I think everyone can take away something that is very personal to them.
Fantastic. And who do you feel will gain the most from listening to this conversation?
Everyone, but I think especially people who are thinking that their life is not where it should be. Because we'll be talking about change and transformation. So I think they will probably take away the most out of this conversation.
Fantastic. And what do you hope people will take away from the conversation?
Hope. I hope that things can change. And in fact, things can change fast. Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. You mentioned that you previously worked in the fashion industry. So would you tell us what led you to step away from that career?
Yeah, I wanted to be in fashion all my life. And for many, many years, I would say about 20 years, I was absolutely so happy to be in fashion, to work with creative people, to create myself. However, fashion industry in New York, and I've been going through it in the 90s and on, was marked with enormous pressure. There was so much pressure. It's that wolf of the Wall Street type of environment where there is so much competition, and the fashion industry is very fast paced, and I myself always took more responsibility on and ended up in overseeing these huge departments with rolling deadlines and a lot of hundreds of millions under management, enormous amount of pressure, and then anxiety and anxiety started to set in. And at that point, I was so engulfed in, creating my career and surviving in, United States, because I'm an immigrant in the first generation. I completely was disconnected with myself. I didn't know that at the time, but I started feeling this enormous discomfort. Not happy with myself, not happy with my family, my house, my work. It just kind of started, it was very daunting. And then I also noticed that my body started to give up. And there were these signs, I started having these little surgeries. I had a tumor in my breast that was benign. But I've learned through my, I guess, experience of being created to recognize patterns. And I didn't hit the rock bottom, how some people did, but I came to the conclusion that I just couldn't continue. I could continue as I was. And I started looking for ways out, for ways to get out of it.
We, I'm in the UK, speaking to you from the UK, and I think across the world, we look at America, we look at New York, and we think fast paced, we think pressure. And the fashion world, particularly, it's kind of that little hub within the greater. So you've got fashion within New York, within the US, and it just seems to add pressure at every level. And while it's wonderful that you were able to work in that role and to get into that role, sometimes the life we dream of doesn't turn out quite as we hoped, does it? And those pressures can lead us to feeling ill and dis-ease. And I love how you noticed and you picked up on those things, and you noticed also in your body that you were having these minor surgeries and that they began to ring alarm bells for you. That's often what I encourage people to stop, to pause, to give themselves permission, time, and space to actually listen to their bodies and to take note, because our body knows, doesn't it?
Yes, always does, always. And it gives us signals, and we just have to listen, really. But you're so right. I mean, I've been, we all aspire to live American dream, but is it really our dream? Is it my dream? And so I had to stop. I had to stop. I got out of working full time, and because I also wanted, I had another dream. It's always to have, it's good to have multiples. When you live through one dream, you have another to look forward to. I always wanted to write. And when you work full time, you're very focused in your work. You don't have time or energy to kind of look around yourself. And while once I stepped out, I had this time and I looked at the industry overall and I was like, wow, as side by side with amazing creativity, there was so much of kind of things that didn't work, especially for intimate apparel, which is very, very kind of old-fashioned, not sustainable. And so I wanted to kind of maybe move the needle a little bit in this direction. And I had a lot to say. So I always wanted to write. And I started writing. It was pouring out of me. And first just to express myself, and then I connected with a few trade magazines and started writing for them. But oh my God, that switch, from being a creative director, working in fashion, and then stepping into the literally literary field. Speaking about anxiety, I was so unsure of myself. First, because I've never written articles, and And I'm a self-taught writer, of course. As always, I always teach myself how to do things. And I felt so vulnerable, as if I didn't have this 30 years of experience already. When you change fields, you become a beginner, and it's very, very hard. The imposter syndrome, being unsure of yourself, it just kind of bubbles up to the top. And thank God I had amazing friends that helped me, and also colleagues from the industry were very supportive at that time. But change is always very hard. So I feel for all the people that want to step out of their very comfortable kind of environment, or not comfortable, and switch to something else. Um, the good thing is that it's absolutely possible, and it happens when um, uncomfortability with where you are, like pain you feel, um, is um, is greater than fear for change. And when this happens, people have this energy to start. I think it's like the most difficult thing to just even start looking, start looking for possibilities to get out of it. I hope I answered your
Absolutely.
question.
A lot of what you've said actually links back to one of my first guests, Mike Lehman, who was a deputy head teacher and stepped away from that role and now supports others who are also in education to, if they feel they've reached burnout, to step away from that role. And I loved what you said right back towards the beginning of your response there about we have these senses of expectations of what a role is going to be or what's expected of us in that role, and that creates so much pressure. But when we're within that role, we get so caught up in it, and our world kind of shrinks to that experience that we're not able, until we give ourselves permission to step back. We don't necessarily have to step out, but to step back. And that, until we do that, we can't see the other opportunities and the other ways of navigating, so that you were able to take that leap, because that takes courage. Like you were saying there about change takes courage. But somebody was saying to me the other day, it only takes 3 seconds of courage. So although we might feel like it's too big a step for me, I can't do this, and I felt that myself in my own journey, it gets to the point, like you were saying there about pain. And my boss, my wonderful, wonderful boss in my very first job that I talk about in my book, he used to say that until the pain of not doing anything, of being stuck in that same position, becomes greater than the pain of the making the choice and making the change, we're going to stay where we are. But when it becomes too painful, and like yourself, you recognize, I can't carry on this way, that's the little push, big push, that we sometimes need to make that change. And like you say, it's great to have a second dream, third, fourth, fifth dream that we can then turn to know that we're not stuck with the decisions we've made that have brought us to this point. I know I got to a point where I thought, I've made the decisions that got me to this point and I don't like it. But I felt tied in because I had made those decisions. Right back at school, what subjects was I going to study, then what career path I was going to follow. But we're not tied in. That's been one of my great realizations. We can always make those changes when we trust that we can. We don't have to know that we
Absolutely.
can, but trust that we can.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned that, uh, and you teach, I believe, body, mind, and spirit connection. So whatever we tell ourselves it becomes true for ourselves. And if we say to ourselves that we can do something, we definitely can. And opposite also is true. If we say we can't, that also becomes a prophecy, self-fulfilling prophecy. So change is such an amazing thing. And actually now, looking back, I start to realize that being stuck is the most exciting thing you can possibly go through. Because now I realize, after being stuck and getting myself unstuck, being stuck again on the new level and getting myself unstuck, I actually understand that you're in precipice of something exciting. This is like that last little wall, being stuck. And if people just realize that, I was crying on my yoga mat during practice. It was quite embarrassing when I was attending a class. Just ended up my practice crying. And it was my absolutely the happiest place. My, yoga studio, my mat. I came home, called my dear friend, and she said, I think you're stuck. And back then it was so scary for me to be stuck, because it looks like you have no way out. That word, right? It means you have no way out, but it's not true. It's almost like in this amazing movie Labyrinth, you always can find a way out. It's basically beginning of your way out. So
That
yeah, it
sense
just
that,
brings so many memories.
thank you so much for sharing that. Because I think that is a real moment that people can relate to, and to know that's okay. If I get to that point where it feels like dead end, I've nowhere to go, I'm in tears because it feels so challenging, painful even, that we can trust that that is the universe, whatever, just saying, this is a point in the road at which you can choose. This is the point I talk often about getting curious with compassion, and we can look into, well, where do I feel stuck? Why do I feel stuck? And just explore that. And something else I came across very recently, which I thought was so beautiful, when we can meet whatever comes up in ourselves with compassion, whether it's tears, whether it's fear, whether it's uncertainty, imposter syndrome, just meeting that with compassion, that's a part of us that has wisdom to share. And when we meet it with compassion and curiosity, we're more able to hear what it has to share. We're able to create that space where it can outpour that wisdom.
Absolutely, absolutely. You mentioned something so important. We very rarely in now today, with amazing technological advancements, which I love so much, we rarely have time to sit with ourselves or even know how important it is. To spend time and just think through things, feel things. And I think this is the beginning of any transformation. After someone would realize that they're stuck, it's impossible to see the whole way out. It's impossible, to almost impossible to see yourself 1, 2 years from where you are. And I think the first step to getting out is just sitting, just feeling your feelings, see what comes up. And this was the beginning, actually, very beginning of my transformation, when I started just, people call it meditation, but really it's just sitting in a quiet place, being still with all devices off. And I did it in the darkness, in complete darkness, because that's what I love. And then you start to hear yourself, because we don't have even time or ability to hear ourselves in all this chaos of just running around, making ourselves busy, taking care of others, getting all this information that comes our way, just to breathe and feel. And when you start doing it, and I listened to some guided meditations, whoever could appeal to me, whoever was speaking my language, whoever I could understand, I listened to. And first I started to really going back and releasing my childhood problem. My parents were divorced when I was 4, and I for longest time in my even in my 50s I didn't understand how it affected me, but it affected me profoundly. Basically, all these pent up feelings guided my whole life. My connection with other people, my connection with the family, they really guided me, and I had no idea about it, all this pain. And when it started to bubble up, started with a lot of crying. Again, it's like form of release. Um, and it kind of came in waves, almost like peeling an onion. You peel one layer of onion, you cry, then it kind of, you feel a little bit lighter, and then there comes time when you have to peel another layer, you get onto a new level. And this is, I'm still doing it. I thought I'm done, but no, it's a process. It's a journey, not a destination or a project. So but you get the idea that now you are on a journey. You're not stuck anymore. And you take one step after the other. This is all you can do. You can see this, next step. Maybe I'll meditate 30 minutes today. And or maybe today it's in an hour. I'll sit with myself and see what happens. And then you start not just hearing yourself, you start to feeling the universe. It just, so I don't call it meditation anymore because it's a word nobody can understand really, but I connect to the source, whatever it is. And I know it's there. I don't know what it is exactly, but I know when I connect to it, and it just takes something away, like the worries, the headache. I do it first thing in the morning. It's amazing. It's hard to explain. I don't know what it is, but it is definitely there, and it definitely helps. And then you start feeling kind of more in balance. You're not alone anymore. It's you feel that universal support. Um, and then the next step for me was really started to learn about how our bodies work. What an amazing um, mechanism we have, and this connection between our bodies and our minds and our souls. And I had this enormous urge to start cleaning my body and just doing good things for it, because I never had the chance for this real self-care, not just go to salon and do nails, or take a massage somewhere, get a massage, but really taking care of your body. Watch what I put in my body. I started just looking at all the labels in the supermarket, um, trying to read whether it's good for my body or not. And I even stopped having my nails down because I wanted to see my nails. I want to see how what I eat now improves my skin and nails, because it's such a great indicators of health and hair. So you start just understanding how amazing you are and what you've been given, and this gratitude to having this body and this life, and waking up in the morning, every morning, and then from this place of gratitude you step on yet another level of thinking, well, how, yes, I have this body and mind connection. Can I improve it? Can I go from okay, this is another day, to, oh my God, this is another day. And realizing that maybe our brain, after millions of years of evolution, don't necessarily make us automatically happy, but work in slightly different ways. So how can I make our brain and our minds work in, way I want? So it's just, yeah, it's been an amazing journey. So, and now I have these routines that I work on my mind, I work on my brain every day to make it, I don't know, happier, lighter. Um, yeah, and when you go through this and you see how quickly your body starts to transform and you feel better, you feel lighter, you know, you start building muscles, your weight comes off, you get this amazing energy, you feel more, accelerating, happier in your 60s than when you felt when you were 40. You're like, wow, that is amazing. And then of course you want to teach other people how to get there.
I so resonate with all that you're saying there, and that's really what wild life, embracing that wonder, like you were just describing there, that gives you back so much energy and joy and zest for life. And living, listening to your body, intuition, the I of wild, L, loving ourselves, loving this amazing body that I get to live in. And I love what you were saying about the meditation or whatever you choose to call it, because I agree, meditation is a word that often puts people off rather than draws them in. But that sense of I am connected to everything. I am part of this amazing universe, and I get to be a part of that life force and to connect with other people and with my environment. And for me, it's with nature and animals. Through that, knowing that we are all interconnected and interdependent. And D, dance. I think that, like you were kind of hinting at there, so much is dependent on how we speak to ourselves, the words that we choose to use, and the allowing ourselves the time to listen to that still small voice, aside from all the noise and chaos outside of us, and to dance with life. To know that life is not a competition, it's not a test, we can't fail, because all we're called to do is be who we are. I think of that as our purpose. Sometimes there seems to be an expectation amongst people that I talk to that we have to have a big purpose, something that's going to go down in history and will be remembered for. And of course, it's nice to think that we will leave some kind of legacy and will be remembered and that we don't just end. I don't actually believe that we do. I'm a believer that energy is neither created nor destroyed, and that's what we are. We are energy. So something carries on. But that idea that we can just be who we are as an individual, because in being that, that's when we truly bring our gifts to the world. So, Asi, you've shared some amazing wisdom in our conversation so far. And I would love people who are listening to know, what is the one takeaway that you would really like to share with people? You talked about you go through this journey, you learn so much, your life transforms, and you want to share that with others. So what would be the key takeaway that you'd like people who are listening to get from this conversation?
I think the main takeaway would be, for people to not think that self-care is selfish, because so many establishment and institution taught us that taking care of yourself would be selfish. You have to take care of other people first. And I think this is fundamentally wrong, because you really, each of us, and maybe speak directly to the to the listener that you are the center of the universe, your universe, and it's you like a sun. You give warmth to other people. But in order for you to be able to give, you have to fill in your vessel, fill in it from the inside by loving yourself, by taking care of yourself first, by slowing down, by mindfulness, listening to your feelings. All this is self-care. And once you fill in your vessel, you can radiate warmth and care to other people on this amazing level. You know, nobody can feed anybody from the empty plate. If your daughter or son comes for dinner and you give them empty plate, so you have to fill your plate first in order to give something to other people. And because we're all connected, anybody can, the main purpose of everybody is to give out good vibes, love, warmth, compassion to other people. This is the best thing anybody can do for this world because we're all connected. And, you know, this is first thing I actually tell all my clients, because this is why I do what I do. And because if you do that, imagine the world if everybody would do that, or at least other person would do that. What an amazing world it would be. And I want to live in this world. So if anything, I'm being selfish right now. I want everyone to fill their vessel and be in the position to love and care for other people. Oh, I guess I expressed it first time. Wow. Thank you.
And what you were saying earlier about it goes deeper than just having our hair done, having our nails done. And I call it radical self-care, giving ourselves permission to engage in that radical self-care. The stuff that isn't always comfortable, because it might get curious and we might come up against some stuff that's a little bit there's that discomfort, but being comfortable with the discomfort, knowing that when I take time for stillness and when I listen, I will connect with what's true for me. And it might be uncomfortable in the moment. It might be going against the conditioning that we've had. Like, it's okay for me to take time to be still. It's okay for me to take time to listen to myself first. We might not be able to do that every time, particularly as I'm sure every parent, every carer will say, but there are times when that just isn't possible in the moment. But still to acknowledge ourselves and to care for ourselves as best we can, moment to moment, and then as and when it allows to go that little bit deeper, that little bit further. Because as you say, unless we do that, we have nothing to give. Put your own oxygen mask on first. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't feed from an empty plate. These are sayings and so on, but the reason that they're there is because they're true. Just because we say them doesn't mean they're not true. They really have a place and a good little prompt to remind us that this is okay. And in doing that, I give permission to everybody else to do the same for themselves. And like you say, what a world that would be to live in. Just as we close, Asi, would you let people know where they can find you and connect with you?
Absolutely. So if they Google my name, Asi Efros, it's a pretty unusual name. They will basically see every place they can find me, and everything is under my first and last name. So it's asiefros.com. That's my website. At Asi Efros on Instagram. The same on Facebook. I also have a podcast called Intimate Talks interview series, where I interview talented people and experts in lingerie industry and other fields. So yeah, I'm sure it will show up in the Google search. And thank you so much, Robin, for having me today. It's amazing to talk to you. You are just fantastic person and the coach and creator. And I absolutely agree with everything with your philosophy. It's so amazing that you share it with people. I think it's very needed.
Thank you so much, Asi. And the same, I have already said how much everything you've said here today has resonated. You shared such amazing wisdom. And wonderful that you're so easy to locate. Also, just to share that Asi's information will be in the show notes below this video. Thank you so much again for joining us, Asi. I'm sure you'll agree this has been an amazing episode. Tune in again for the next guest, which will be following along shortly. I hope you can join us then. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Vulnerability, Introspection and Growth. I hope it's given you a moment to breathe, reflect, and perhaps even see your own story with a little more compassion. If you find this conversation meaningful, I'd love it if you'd share, subscribe, or leave a review. It helps others find their way here too. Until next time, take gentle care, and remember, the journey inwards is where the real growth begins.